This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Hello, football fans, and welcome to The Onside Kick. My name is Ricky Widmer, and as always, I'm joined by the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
And Mark, not a lot of news happening in the football world.
Nothing too exciting
this week, but we did get something. Ryan Tannehill was offered a deal by the Miami Dolphins, and he signed it. $95 million, 6 years.
It's a big boy deal right there for somebody who we made the joke earlier of, you know, we thought he was going to be gone every season pretty much.
The Tannehills are here to stay.
Forever.
They're never going anywhere. Are here to stay. But I mean, looking at his stats, because you got to bring him up since he's been in the league in 2012. Completion percentage around 61.9. He's had only just over 1,000 completions in his career. Overall rating of 84 on the dot. 42 interceptions, 63 touchdowns, and 1,250
And there
yards.
really have not been much of anything for him to work with out there.
No, not really.
You know, Joe Philbin did win a Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator in Green Bay. But since then, people are kind of like, oh, maybe he really wasn't that great, and Aaron Rodgers is just phenomenal. Maybe that's what's won us a Super Bowl. Not sure. Although
Let's
really...
see. In his first year, 7-9, 9th overall.
We're talking about Tannehill?
In the AFC, yeah. This is since they got Tannehill. Then in his second year, 8-8. So they bumped up
down a
one
little bit.
win.
No, you said 7-9 or 9-7?
7-9.
Okay.
Then they were 8-8. And then this last year, they were 8-8 again.
Well, went one step down again. But, you know, the good thing here is, and I don't even mean this necessarily as a joke, they are above 500 or at or above 500. So you're not upset. You're not tearing apart the team. You're not going for the rebuild right now. You're in a good spot. They just need to kind of put those pieces together. And this is them basically saying, Tannehill is our franchise quarterback. He is an answer here. We need to continue building around him, something that we struggled to do previously.
Because of this, though, we had the idea. We had the bright idea, because of this, why not redraft the 2012 NFL draft? Why not do that? And this was, we're going to take you back in the Wayback Machine right now, back to 2012. We're getting ready for the NFL draft.
It was an okay time.
And coming into this draft, the big talk was Andrew Luck's number 1, is RG3 number 2, or RG3 is number 2.
Or people who did. There are those few people out there who did want RG3 to go number 1. Few people, but they existed.
Hey, I mean, looking back now, Andrew Luck is the clear number 1.
And that discussion now would have been a little different as we look back. Of Andrew Luck number 1, maybe number 2, because someone named Russell Wilson should be number 1.
Throw it out there. That's
the discussion.
Here's what we did. You can see in the description down below, whether you're listening on SoundCloud or YouTube, our complete. We're only doing the first round. We're redrafting the first round of this draft. How we did it was we went back to a Bleacher Report article talking about draft needs for the 2012 NFL draft. That article you can also find in the description, because I want you guys to see what me and Mark were looking at when we put this together. And we basically went through the teams. Okay, this was their needs based on, you got to do this with looking at hindsight, based on how the players are performing now, who should they have drafted? And we're both in agreement. Andrew Luck is the number 1 overall pick. However, the Redskins, they don't go with RG3, Mark. They go with Russell Wilson, the Super Bowl winner.
Which, I mean, to be fair, there is still the question of, outside of Seattle, is Russell Wilson as good as Russell Wilson is? But the only thing we have is Russell Wilson being extremely successful. So going off of that, you can't avoid this pick. And when you're going to go with that quarterback, Russell Wilson's your best second option.
Not everyone can throw an interception for 6 points for the home team.
That's true.
But Russell Wilson can.
He certainly can. Certainly can.
And I mean, to me, I feel like the Redskins would be a much better team with Russell Wilson. And I may even say that if they drafted Russell Wilson instead of RG3, Mike Shanahan might still have a job in Washington.
It's possible. Very
However,
possible.
it's hard to say that Mike Shanahan would be able to do the same things with Russell Wilson that Pete Carroll did with him.
Mm-hmm.
There could be a chance.
And that's a completely different team, obviously, too. Pete Carroll built up a defensive-minded team that pounds the ball with Marshawn Lynch. None of that exists in Washington. So you're not going to get any benefits here. So Russell Wilson will be very, very tested.
What about third overall pick? Instead of our boy Trent Richardson, the Browns take who?
Muscle hamster Doug Martin.
And this is a hard one, though.
Yeah.
This is a hard one to pick because wide receiver, running back, it was either at this point, so you guys are in on the thought process of me and Mark. It was either Doug Martin, Alfred Morris, Alshon Jeffrey, or T.Y. Hilton.
Mm-hmm. And for me, Alfred Morris, throw him out. And I do think Alshon Jeffrey would have been a solid pick, obviously. Maybe a little homer here, but Alshon Jeffrey, I think, is the best wide receiver out of this group.
He would have been 10 times better than Josh Gordon.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I mean,
or Justin
just
Blackman.
in the NFL compared to not in the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. But with that being said, I think Doug Martin, it's the correct move for them. It also kind of plays a little true to what they actually did with going with the running back anyways. Just kind of say this would have probably been the better option.
I'm going to ask you this. Looking back at the 2012 draft, the reason why we left the order exactly like it would have been with trades in, just how it played out, each team that ended up having the pick. Looking back, though, I'm going to ask you this question. Should the Browns have traded to jump from 4 to 3, or should they just have let the Vikings take Khalil at 3?
No, I think the Browns are fine. I mean, they got 2 picks in the first round anyways. You don't really need to get too much more. I think you're fine. You go get your running back. You'll be happy with him. You'll go hope to fill in some of your other needs later. We'll get to them later. And I think looking back from how we did the whole thing, I think they did a very good job in our draft here. So I think get that need you need. Well, that need you need. Would you have done well with Alshon Jeffrey if you traded back? Yes. But Doug Martin, going to be a solid option as well and get you that running back that Cleveland has not been able to get for a while.
Well, and you've been saying Alshon's name a lot. I brought it up, but we had him going Jaguars, similar situation at 5. Instead of Justin Blackman, you got to take a guy like Alshon because Alshon Jeffrey, arguably, there could be a homer for you being a Bears fan, me living in Chicago having to hear you guys talk about Alshon Jeffrey.
He's a good man.
Jeffrey may be the best wide receiver in the 2012 draft class.
I definitely would say he is.
Looking back, could be.
I would say he is. And we're not too far. It's not like we're 10 years back, looking at it right now. But yeah, Alshon Jeffrey, fantastic. I mean, he gives you such a great catch radius. Throw the ball anywhere and he's going to come down with it. You get your highlights. You sell jerseys. This is a good way to go.
I want to move back, and this is just because I just thought of this, and I want to say this because this was in our thought process. I mean, we can't just think it. We got to say it so our listeners who are listening,
the ones who can't read our minds.
Yeah, who can't read our minds, they can get in on the conversation. If we go back to that Redskins pick for a quick second, if we were looking at the needs on the Bleacher Report article, and they did need linebacker. Originally, we did have them going with
Luke Kuechly. Yep.
However, I forgot Russell Wilson was in this class.
Yeah.
I mean, should have they gone maybe linebacker?
I mean, I think
instead of quarterback, or do you take a guy like Russell Wilson because he's a Super Bowl champion?
I think
now?
Part of the way we were kind of doing this too, we did kind of take into consideration what they did go with. Obviously, you get that with the Browns and the Redskins here, both saying that
and the Jaguars,
their brass obviously wanted this type of position. Here's the better option. Luke Kuechly, I think, would have been a great option, but for that, I think you can't really pass up Russell Wilson. This is a guy who, looking back for us, been to 2 Super Bowls, won one of them, nearly won the other one, probably could have won that one if, you run the ball. But we're never going to let that down. But here's the thing. You got to go with those Super Bowl appearances, those Super Bowl wins, because you're sitting there thinking, we could have had those. Luke Kuechly,
Yep.
yes, you got to the playoffs, and
Doing a good job for Carolina.
he's doing really good, but the rest of that team's not really supporting him as much. The man can't do it all on his own. So just looking at the pure success of it, got to go with Russell Wilson.
And I mean, looking at, we skipped over the Vikings. That's because
Nobody cares.
we still have them going with Matt Khalil. We had the Cowboys doing what they originally did, taking Claiborne. Buccaneers, though, we have Alshon off the board. Tampa Bay needs instead of going safety like they did, Mark Barron, who is with the Rams now, why not go with T.Y. at the
T.Y. is a
7th
great
overall?
option. Yeah,
I mean, this is
he's a good
obviously
option.
this entire thing, I'm going to say it again, is us basing on what they did. And T.Y., second best wide receiver in this draft.
For sure. Yeah, T.Y. Hilton's a great option here. T.Y. Hilton's going to miss playing with Andrew Luck, I think, a little bit. Playing with, really, who cares? Josh Freeman out there going to eventually play with maybe Glennon as well, which is unfortunate for him. But yeah, T.Y. Hilton's a great option. Very a good speedster. He's going to burn some guys for sure. Give you a lot of versatility of what you can do. And honestly, T.Y. Hilton, he's going to be the only guy out there really catching a ball. Because obviously the Buccaneers haven't had any good wide receivers. Really, I don't remember the last good wide receiver in Tampa Bay.
Their leading receivers that year, if we're looking at their numbers, Vincent Jackson, Mike Williams, Dallas Clark. Those were their top three.
Yeah, which actually are some pretty, they're better than I thought.
And this was,
when I was remembering.
And I'm looking at the 2012 season. So this was the season that T.Y. would have came into. They would have had Vincent Jackson, Mike Williams. Oh, yeah, T.Y. as the slot guy.
Yeah,
or they might have moved Mike Williams into the slot, had T.Y. on the outside. But their quarterback, Josh Freeman. Freeman threw for over 4,000 yards.
This was the time where Freeman did really well,
that
and
was
people were excited.
27 touchdowns to 17 INTs.
What happened afterwards? Well, I can tell you one thing: he was not a Shiano man. So.
He was not a Shiano man, and they ended up going 7-9 that season. Buccaneers went 7-9. Did they play? They played my Vikings and won. Did they play your Bears? No, they did not. They did not play the Bears that season. But we had them going T.Y. It would have been a great wide receiver little threesome there if they could have got T.Y. along with it. But number 8, the Dolphins, you gave him a 6-year deal.
Yeah, you gave
Stick
him this
with the
big deal.
Tannehills.
You're getting this guy. I'm sorry. I mean, there are some good options, of course, available. But like we're saying, you gave a huge monster contract to the Tannehills, so you keep the Tannehills.
And like we said, Luke Kuechly, because we didn't have him going to Washington, he stays in Carolina. That leaves number 10, Buffalo Bills. And originally, going back to the 2012 draft, they said, you know what, we're going to go with Stephon Gilmore, cornerback, South Carolina. Me and Mark are looking back, go, no, you can't do that because you are going to take, at number 10, Bobby Wagner, one of the guys that Pete Carroll brought in to build this defense. He built the Legion of Boom with Bobby Wagner.
Which, I mean, that gives you a nice aggressive nature to your defense. A great kind of centerpiece at the linebacker position to base the team around. This is a great option. You're going to be really, really happy, obviously, having him. And, of course, by looking back, this guy's had a lot of success. If you can bring some of that to your team as well, you're going to be extremely happy.
And I am looking, like we did last time, the defensive leaders for the Bills that year. Gilmore started all 16 games that season, who they originally played at right corner, and he had 1 INT, and that's about it. After that, he forced 2 fumbles. He did have 16 pass deflections, but he wasn't that big of a deal. Bobby Wagner would have been the way to go. Am I wrong?
No, I definitely think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, you'd be very happy. I mean, any of these guys from the Seahawks, you want these guys. I mean, these are the guys who have been dominating the league lately. That's why they're calling them a dynasty right now. I will
say right now, and this is going to be a little out of the order, but in this draft, the Seahawks really got screwed by us, Mark. Not only do they lose Bobby Wagner, they lose Bruce Irving.
Yeah.
or Irvin, sorry, and then they lose Russell Wilson. That's 3 of their best players that won them Super Bowls.
Any of these drafts, if you're not like in the top 10,
you're screwing over Super Bowl winners.
Exactly.
The Patriots lose Tavon Wilson in this draft.
This is the real way to really make sure that the bad teams become good teams. Or you can be the Colts and everything goes exactly the same.
Jay Cutler would never have to worry. He wouldn't have anyone on the other side. He could just throw the Brandon all day.
That'd be fun.
Just toss it up there.
That's what the goal is, right?
And going on, let's see, number 11. We still had the Chiefs taking Poe. Number 12. Philadelphia Eagles. We had them going with Melvin Ingram instead of who they drafted in Fletcher Cox.
Which Fletcher Cox, of course, it was not a bad pick. Melvin Ingram, I think, is going to be a better pick. High quality linebacker again. He's done great things for San Diego, made that defense very good, been a good rock for it. This is one of those ones where if they did have Fletcher Cox, I mean, you're not upset about it. Obviously not going to be upset about it. But I think this is just one of those ones, but just a little bit better. You're not suddenly going from the bust of Trent Richardson up to Doug Martin, quality player, but you're going from good quality player to just a little bit better of a quality player, I think.
And then at 13, okay, here's one where I'm be honest, Mark. We made a flub in our draft. We left one guy out because we originally had him going earlier, but then we snuffed him for another one, Malcolm Floyd.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking through our entire draft. He is not there. So this is where I'm going to pose this question. At 13, Arizona Cardinals, do they stay with Floyd because he's technically on the board, or do they still take Bruce Irvin?
I don't know. That's tough. That is. I mean, that's a defensive
Bruce Irvin, a guy who was able to help the Seahawks win a couple Super Bowls. Malcolm Floyd, who is now replacing Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
In Arizona now.
I think that's one of the things you got to think about in 2012. You're fine with Fitzgerald. You don't have any problems with that. Larry Fitzgerald's been doing fantastic things for your team. You're pretty happy. I think going with Bruce Irvin is kind of the counter of we have our number one. We need to build up that defense. And as we know, the Cardinals built up that defense really, really well. And it's done pretty good things for them. They just need a quarterback who stays healthy. So I think with that, you might switch out to Floyd. I think that might be... No, I mean, you might not switch to Floyd. You might stay what we have with Bruce Irvin.
I'm glad you said Irvin, because this is how we're... Right now, while we're recording the podcast, we're kind of fluctuating some things. And here's what we can do. And this is what helps us is... The next pick at 14, St. Louis Rams.
Yes.
We had them going with Ruben Randall because we thought at the time, best wide receiver available.
Yep.
No. Malcolm Floyd.
Yeah.
Or Michael Floyd. He's a Raven. Or not a Raven, a Ram.
Yep.
Michael Floyd to the Rams, 14. Give Sam Bradford someone to throw to because I made the joke, Mark.
Give whoever's healthy somebody to throw to.
I made the joke because he's on the team now. Take Nick Foles.
Yeah. Solid.
Take the guy who is arguably as good as Peyton Manning.
You know, some would say that he is about as good as Peyton Manning.
Maybe even better.
Well, I mean, some probably would not say that, but some would say they have reached the same achievement and are therefore as good as each other. Just about equal. But yeah, I think that's a good trade there.
And then at 15, Seahawks, they're sitting there going, well, where's our Bruce Irving? So we got to give him Quentin Coples, give him something to work with. And
not bad.
I feel sometimes with that defense, plug in anyone who's decent and they'd be good.
Yeah, especially
as long as they still have Richard Sherman.
Yeah, I mean, not even with Richard Sherman. That whole defense is great. Doesn't necessarily matter with Richard Sherman. Everybody's doing well.
I think it was Dan Quinn. I think we got to give most of the credit to Dan Quinn.
Yeah, Dan Quinn was doing fantastic things, but we'll have to see this year. I mean, it might all stay together and be just fine. So I agree with you, though. This is kind of a plug and play. You give them Shea McClellan, and it'll still be good. They'll still play fine. And like I as a Bears fan, made the comment to Ricky before we started recording that Shea McClellan doesn't even get drafted.
No
one drafts him. No one wants
we
him.
almost let him go to the Packers because you know how
the Packers really did consider it.
You know how much we love the Packers.
Yeah, they considered it. But as a Bears fan, I can't let Shea McClellan be drafted by even my worst enemy.
So, and now we're going to go to the 16th overall selection in our redraft. The New York Jets going with, he's an Arizona Cardinal now, but no way he's going to New York. We have cornerback / special teamer Justin Bethel.
Yep. Yeah, and it'll be good. I mean, like we said before, with the this was kind of the time where the Cardinals start building up their defense, and you have need at defense.
Well, this
would
would be the Jets. So
yeah, the Jets just had Copels being taken from them.
Yeah.
So this is kind of another solid option to go for. I mean, when you're just looking at who's left.
And at 17, another defensive guy, Donta Hightower. He's not going to be a Patriot. He's going to be a Bengal.
Yeah, which unfortunate. He's sitting there going, I go from Tom Brady to
we could have
to Andy Dalton.
We could have technically had the Bengals keep Drake Kilpatrick, but I don't know. To me, I feel like Donta Hightower has been a better player than Kilpatrick. We've heard his name more, and I mean, it could be because he's on the Patriots or the Deflatriots
or
whatever you like to call them. Nowadays.
Guys who win Super Bowls.
The cheaters, whatever you want. I don't call them that because they win. They're the winners.
They do win.
They win games. They win Super Bowls.
They win however possible.
Robert Kraft sits on a couch with Roger Goodell at a party, and then he goes, no, we won't appeal. It's okay.
Did you heard the part too? I like that they added that detail of Robert Kraft and Roger Goodell. They hugged.
Did they?
And it was like, why is this necessary information to this article? But okay.
Patriots won't appeal, but Tom Brady will. Tom Brady's going to stay the course.
Yeah, he's got to do it. He's got to come back somehow. I liked, just to take a little side moment.
Yeah, take it.
They were talking about, I believe it was actually just on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, where they were talking about, because they've been talking about Tom Brady a lot, and they had the moment where they're like, Tom Brady, good, he gets suspended. Now he's got to spend a month with his hot wife on the beach. And it's like, oh, he wins. He wins no matter what. Nothing matters. And I do like that they, I think this was on the episode previous, because like I said, they've been talking about Tom Brady a lot, where they were talking about if only there was a kryptonite to Tom Brady. Oh, wait, it's Eli.
Yeah, it's Eli Manning.
It's Eli Manning. Somehow Eli Manning can get it done. Nobody else can, but
Peyton
Eli
can't.
No. See,
and that's Eli can just sit at that Thanksgiving table and go...
just polishing the rings.
Yeah. Hey, Peyton, how many of these did you not get because of Tommy? Oh, yeah, that's right.
On
Only
Thanksgiving dinner,
Tommy.
He's like, oh, I got to eat this turkey leg. Hey, Peyton, you mind if I put my rings by you? Just hold on to them. Make sure they don't go anywhere. Make sure they don't get dirty.
But 18. This is, to me, one of the most interesting picks of our redraft.
Yeah,
because of what the Chargers did this past year and how this would have affected them. We had them going Alfred Morris. Chargers taking a running back. That means they wouldn't have to take Melvin Gordon this year.
Yeah.
I mean, Alfred Morris, I think he would still be on the Chargers, right?
I think
Phillip
so.
Rivers may have been in an AFC championship game.
He might have gotten it with his bolo tie.
I will give him AFC championship, not Super Bowl.
Yeah. Maybe if he was a little bit better running back helping out. But they've needed this running back. I mean, every draft, it's always a conversation of they have a good running back, but not a great running back. They need a little bit more help with the run game, so that way it's not all on Phillip Rivers. And once again, you got to try it, right? Because Phillip Rivers, this is a little bit of a younger Phillip Rivers. You have a little bit more of a time to take advantage of this opportunity here with a good quarterback. So hopefully go out there and win some AFC championship games.
And then in 19, you love this pick because the Bears don't get Shea McClellan. So they're like, okay.
Yeah, nobody wants
no
him.
to Shea.
Well, you say I love this pick. I wouldn't say I necessarily love this pick.
You love it because you don't have Shea on your team anymore.
Yeah, that makes me happy.
It's kind of like the day Chris Conte says he's no longer a Bear, that the team released him.
That was a
great day in Chicago.
Yeah, it was a really good day. That was one of those times where you said, you know what, 5 wins is good. 5 wins is great.
That is the last time that Chicagoans just said, you know what, fuck you, Chris Conte.
No, we'll probably still say it.
However, I will say, if you're going to say that to Chris Conte, make sure you find the right one. Because there were so many people that one game that were tweeting at Chris Conte on Twitter. Oh, wait, it was the wrong Chris Conte.
Yeah, for sure.
Just like people say, oh, I'm tweeting at Brandon Marshall. No, you're not. You're tweeting at the Brandon Marshall that plays on Denver.
Yeah, those are always some of my favorites. And because he always reacts to them too.
he tweets back, and that makes it better.
Exactly.
Like, he tweets back like he is Brandon Marshall, and then you get that dumb person that's like, well, how are you tweeting? You're on the field.
But for this one here, for the Chicago Bears, they needed offensive line help. They've always needed offensive line help.
Plus, the reason I like this is Jonathan Martin going to the Bears because he gets out. If this happens, the stuff in Miami never happens.
Yeah.
Richie Incognito never messes with Jonathan Martin. We never get the whole situation that went down there. Might turn out better for Martin if this happened.
Yeah, and it's a good option here, especially too because although this was kind of in the time that the Bears locker room started falling apart with guys like Urlacher and Briggs not quite being leaders anymore. But I still think it had enough remnants from the Lovie Smith. We will only draft good guys on this team. So you had good guys in the locker room who will take care of a guy like this where they're not going to let a Richie Incognito situation happen.
Here's all I think about it. It goes back to, I want to say it's a few weeks ago when I was listening to Waddle and Sylvie here on ESPN Chicago Radio, ESPN 1000, and they were talking to Kyle Long. He was talking about Roberto Garza.
Yeah.
How he was a guy that kind of like showed you with his actions how to be. And I feel like Jonathan Martin needed a guy like Roberto Garza, not a guy like Richie Incognito.
Yeah, and I think also Richie Incognito needed a guy like Roberto Garza too, because
Richie
to say,
Incognito's a jerk.
Hey, that's not how this is done. You sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
That's what because that was the problem with the whole Incognito situation was everybody was saying, how did this locker room and this management staff allow this to fester and take place?
Garza would have stood up and said, no, you're done. You're done. Just sit down. Or I'm
while
gonna clock you
wearing
in the
Jay
face.
Cutler's jersey. Do you remember those commercials where Jay Cutler walks into the locker room and goes, Roberto, as he's wearing the Jay Cutler jersey for some reason. I don't know why he loves wearing Jay Cutler jerseys, but he does.
Everybody wants to be the quarterback, Mark.
That's true.
You said it.
That's true. I did say that. What position are you going to play, Roberto? Quarterback.
Everybody wants to be the quarterback.
But yeah, for this one, I think it's good. I mean, that's the best option here for offensive line, I believe, and it'll be someone who needed this situation, and the team needed him as well. So I think it's a good combination.
Well, and then at 20, the Tennessee Titans take Drake Kilpatrick, who the Bengals originally took in 2012, but at 21. New England Patriots in our draft, I feel like they're getting an improved defensive end because originally they took Chandler Jones. We have him going with former Illinois Fighting Illini. I got to throw that out there.
He's happy.
You can't throw that out there.
Every once in a while,
times.
they produce a player.
They do, and we had defensive end Whitney Marcellus.
Yeah, I think this is a good one. And this is one of those situations, too, where honestly, the Patriots, much like the Seahawks, this is kind of a plug-and-play situation. Just get guys in there and they produce. And that's honestly, that's what the Patriots do very well with guys who aren't maybe the best players out there, but they do really well with the Belichick system. And I know this is on the defensive side, but still, I think this will be a good option for them. A little bit of an improvement. They can still be out there getting to AFC championship games, winning a Super Bowl in the future, still deflating balls in the future. They can do it all.
Still deflating balls in the future. And at 22, Browns take their quarterback.
We love it. We love it so much.
Browns take their quarterback.
Not
quarterback.
Not RG3.
Not RG3, not Brandon Weeden. Who do they take?
They're going to take none other than Nick Foles.
Nick Foles.
Who, the thing about this, when
Nick
you compare,
Foles' career just went downhill.
Yeah, it just ended. It just came to a complete stop. But this is an interesting one here because you have a question between Nick Foles, who really only has the one season to look at, and RG3, who really only has the one season to look at. And it's kind of a situation of which one of these.
Before he did the stanky leg.
Yeah, exactly. Which one of these would you rather have?
Nick Foles.
And you got to go with the non-injury.
Yeah, Nick Foles.
Yeah, for sure.
I would like the guy who's as close to Peyton Manning as I can get.
Yeah, and there is no closer than Nick Foles. Their names are literally right next to each other.
His middle name is Manning, so it's Nick Manning Foles.
Nick Peyton Manning Foles. I'm going to name my son's middle name Peyton Manning, so that way he can be the same.
I don't know if I could name my son Peyton.
Manning. Peyton Manning.
I don't know if
if you want to go for the improved version, you could name him Eli Manning.
No, we already came up with this, Mark. My kid names are going to be Jonathan Taves Widmer, Patrick Kane Widmer. Oh wait, you're saying it's a girl, Patricia Sharp Widmer.
There you go. There you go. I like it.
My future wife has to be okay with that, though. You're just okay with it because it's happening.
Dickie, I said you Dickie. Ricky Widmer here, his dating profile just at the very top says, must be okay with naming all children after Chicago Blackhawk players. And gets a pretty large amount of responses just because of that. Just because of that.
You got to have Andrew Shaw Widmer, Brandon Saad Widmer. I'll even throw in, I'll name a kid Coach Quinville Widmer.
What you need is
What's your first name, Coach?
You need to get King of Chicago, Marion Hossa Widmer.
Marion Hossa Widmer. It's just
King of Chicago, Marion Hossa Widmer. Okay. The whole thing.
So it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Whole thing. But going back to our redraft, because that's what we're doing, a football podcast here. 23rd overall, Detroit Lions going with running back here instead of offensive tackle. They're going to steal one from the Dolphins and take Lamar Miller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it fills a need, essentially. I mean, this is kind of what we're going. We weren't necessarily trying to go for just the absolute best player there. We were still trying to take into consideration what teams needed, what they did. And I think this is much more of a need pick than anything else. It's also going to probably be... It's going to be a fine pick, especially when you have Calvin Johnson and Matthew Stafford out there. I did want to consider the possibility of going with a number 2 wide receiver because this was still in the long search for the number 2. But there really wasn't a good option there.
Well, and I mean, they did have Javid Best. Best was placed on the IR in the 2012 season with his continuing post-concussion issues, and then he ended up getting released in 2013. So if they drafted Lamar Miller, that would have been the guy they would have never had to sign Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
And they could have had a running back who, at least for Ryan Tannehill, has been decent behind him.
Mm-hmm. He's been solid.
I mean, he did pretty well this last season when my guy in one of my fantasy leagues, Sean Moreno, gets injured for the Dolphins.
Yeah. Definitely a guy who has to step up. And that's the thing about
Can we just say that again? I drafted AP and Sean, and both of them got injured.
Hey, man, I drafted AP too. I understand your pain. First overall, get Adrian Peterson, then season's over.
Mark had the best chance to do his best Bill Clinton impersonation. I feel your pain.
That's Ricky's impersonation that he just goes for it every time.
Well, when you can use it, you gotta say it.
Ricky's just like, I'm gonna get this in there. I'm gonna get it in there.
Well, you said I feel your pain.
I do feel your pain.
I do. I
feel it real good.
24th overall, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers going with Vontez Burfict, a guy who I'm just going to say wasn't drafted in 2012.
No.
Pro Bowler who wasn't drafted.
Which, I mean, that's one of those situations where in these redrafts, this is why these exist, to give the credit to the guys who need them.
Pro Bowler Josh Gordon still goes undrafted in the first round.
Well,
he didn't go first round, though. He was a supplemental guy.
Yeah, doesn't play in the NFL anymore, Josh Gordon. Will probably never play in the NFL. Same with Justin Blackman, of course, who, once again, he's still on the board, kind of, technically. Yeah, those guys don't play. So that's just the nice thing about going in hindsight of being able to be like, yeah, that guy's not going to actually ever play, so let's not draft him.
I want to jump ahead to 26, though. This is the more interesting pick than Harrison Smith going to the Patriots at 25.
Yeah.
Houston Texans, because the guy that they took is no longer on the board, we had him just saying, you know what, fuck it, let's go RG3.
Yeah, I mean, RG3 still, of course, minus the injury, hopefully someone can rein him in a little bit, not have him run around so much. He had a very, very productive rookie year. I mean, he had a great rookie year. There's an actual argument to say that he had a better rookie year than Andrew Luck. So if he could continue that production, wouldn't you love to have that quarterback? Now, we're looking back at the injuries and saying that's a big concern. It might happen again. Who knows, really? Who really knows with that? But it scares us off, and that's what drops him down. But he's still going to be a first-round talent. And I think the Houston Texans will be thrilled to have him.
Gary Kubiak was still at the helm at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going to want to rein in the running quarterback.
He had this draft class and then the next one, and then he was ousted out of town in 2013. But now I feel like this was a hard one because looking back at the injuries, you could say, and you could say in the comment section down below, hey, you know what? Why is RG3 even in the first round? He shouldn't be there. He had one good season, and then he's done.
But it was injuries that did it to him.
Yeah, and part of me feels like it would have been better if he went to Houston because then we would have had the Andrew Luck RG3 twice a year.
That'd be fun. But it wouldn't be that big of a deal when it's...
Yeah, but if he was actually playing well, especially that first season, that would have turned into a big rivalry game.
Yeah,
because it was two teams with good quarterbacks.
Instead, now we just have a good quarterback versus people who want to murder him.
Yeah. Then
Texas.
We have, at 27, we had the Bengals going with Chandler Jones. 28, Packers just going almost BPA with safety, Tavon Wilson. Here's one that changed because of our Michael Floyd mix-up.
Yeah.
Vikings, we originally had Kendall Wright because that's who was our best wide receiver. Now they get Ruben Randall, who's to me went up.
Yeah.
Because Ruben Randall's done good things with the Giants.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think Kendall Wright, too. The problem with that, you're really getting a guy who's just kind of a number 2. Nothing to be too excited about with this. For Ruben Randall, this is a good one. He, of course, I mean, he's not the guy you're going to be extremely, extremely excited about. He's not your Alshon Jeffrey. But for where you get him the end of the first round, I think you're going to be very happy.
Then we have Janoris Jenkins, 30th to the 49ers. 31, Tampa Bay taking Bernard Pierce, so they did get their running back. They actually take running back at the same exact pick that they did in the real 2012 draft. And then last but not least, he moved up 2 slots in our redraft. Colby Fleener. He's no longer an Indianapolis Colt. He will be a New York Football Giant.
Which is a good spot to be still. I mean, Eli Manning's still going to do good things for you. I do, of course, I want to give the special shout out to LaMichael James, who we both really wanted to squeeze in here, but it just didn't make sense.
Well, and the big thing with him was he got drafted to a backfield where he was never going to be the starter.
Exactly. And it didn't make sense to me.
Because at that time, I believe you had Frank Gore starting, then you had Kendall Hunter as the secondary guy, then you had LaMichael James. Then they draft Marcus Lattimore.
Yeah.
Then they draft Carlos Hyde. And it's like, by the time that happens, it's like, okay, you've been in the league so long, you've just been buried by running backs.
And that's one of the situations, too, where with a running quarterback, that's going to work really well with Michael James. That's exactly what Michael James knows and does. So I think that something like that would have worked out. Second round.
I think that's why they originally drafted him. It just didn't work out.
They just forgot they had him on the roster.
Never came to fruition.
He showed up to practice every day, and everyone's like, "Who's that guy?" LaMichael? I don't know that guy. He might be a practice squad
where'd he go to college? Oregon?
What's that?
Oregon?
They make Eagles there, right?
And before we end the podcast, any last thoughts on our redraft?
I'm very happy as a Chicago Bear fan to not have to deal with Shea McClellan. But I just want to say the number 1, number 2, this is a much more interesting conversation, I think, moving forward as opposed to the RG3 Andrew Luck. Having Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, definitely interesting situation there. That provides more debate, I think, for later on of was it the right choice? Which one should you have gone with?
I can't say I'm not terribly disappointed by this draft, but I like Harrison Smith. I do. And now that he's no longer a Viking in our redraft, kind of hurts a little bit, but at least we got Ruben Randall.
Yeah, Ruben Randall's good. And it's going to also improve for when you guys, for the Vikings, when they went out to get Greg Jennings and Greg Jennings did nothing. Maybe you don't need Greg Jennings because you got Ruben Randall. So you can be happy.
What, you think we're going to do that because we have Ruben Randall now?
You don't. Well, the problem for the Vikings was didn't have wide receivers.
I'm looking up was Christian Ponder our quarterback then?
2012? Yes, because you drafted him the year prior. Was. I believe.
That season, we went 10-6 that season. Wow. With that, that was okay.
This was Adrian Peterson.
No, this was not Adrian Peterson.
The previous one was Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, this was the one where we went 10-6, wild card team. Ponder got injured, And then Joe Webb had to play in the wild card game in Green Bay. And
Joe Webb looked good. Kind of.
Didn't look good in that game.
No, which one was this? Was the one where he played the Eagles, right? And he looked good against the Eagles, or was that the year prior?
No, this was the one where, okay, we finished the season on a 4-game win streak. Needed to beat the Packers in Lambeau.
Oh, when you need to beat the Packers at the end, you don't do it.
We did it because they weren't trying. Then we played them the next week in the wild card, and they spanked us.
I wish the Chicago Bears could beat the Packers at the end.
This was the season that a little personal for me, because when I was watching this game, I was dating my ex-girlfriend at the time. She was a Packer fan, and her family were Bear fans. Didn't know how to talk football, so I'm sitting there watching my team lose. Yeah. Listen to guys that are like 30 years older than me talk about, like, not know how to talk about football, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, keep your mouth shut,
silently
bite your tongue.
Crying.
Bite your tongue. You can go home and cry into your Adrian Peterson jersey when you go home.
Yeah.
Or your Randy Moss jersey when you go home.
This is very much an aside, but I do remember that. I think it was the Eagles when Joe Webb actually looked good when he played. And it was like, wow, Joe Webb, this guy's a solid option. And then what happened to Joe Webb?
That was like a season before this. Yeah.
Nothing.
That was a season before this. This was an absolute terrible moment in my Viking career.
There's a lot of those.
Kind of made me not want to even make the playoffs. I said, we should have just lost in week 17, and then I wouldn't have had to be disappointed.
I understand that pain too, Ricky. I don't feel it, but I understand it.
That is going to do it for the Onside Kick this week. Go ahead and tell us down below in the comment section what you think of our 2012 NFL recap. Also, tell us what you think about Ryan Tannehill getting a new deal from the Miami Dolphins. Make sure to check us out on Twitter. I'm at Ricky Widmer. Mark is at the Mark Weber with 2 E's, and you can check us out at Most Valuable Pod for the Most Valuable Podcast Twitter. Thank you guys for checking out the podcast this week, and as always, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod for more great podcasts.